Okay, here we are. Alt.nerd.obsessive. Worst episode ever.
Hey everybody, welcome to Worst Episode Ever, a podcast for people who love The Simpsons, by people who love The Simpsons, about how much we hate The Simpsons. We're here trying to find which is the worst episode ever. And as always, my name is Dan.
And as always, my name is Jack.
And today we are going to be watching an episode from Season 12, I believe it is.
Yeah, going way back.
Season 12, it's called Bye Bye Nerdie. It originally aired March of 2001.
Oh, wow, and this is March of 2016.
You're right.
Good 15 years ago.
15 years. It was actually... almost. I think it might be actually 15 years to the day. So this aired March 11th. What day is today? I don't even know.
I don't know. It's a single digit. I know that.
I don't know what day we're actually recording this. I don't know what day this comes out, but maybe we're in luck.
Sync Points comes out the 8th, which we're going to get to in a second.
It's the 10th. It was tomorrow, if you're listening to this first day, is the 15th anniversary of this episode. It took us a moment, but we got there.
4 gallon. You pour the 4 gallons into the 3 gallon.
Right. And you could steal City Hall. But Ricky Gregory suggested this episode, so thank you,
Ricky Gregory.
Ricky Greggs.
We actually just talked to him yesterday. We did an improbatu Periscope session at Wii Studios when we were playing some board games.
Yeah.
And he was chatting with us on Periscope. His tweet. Dan thought I kept saying McGregor, but
right.
it's his initials, R.A. Gregor.
Yeah, his Twitter handle is McGregor.
We're guessing his name is McGregor, but he's Scooby-Doo, and
right,
he just calls him McGregor. So thank you, Ricky.
We're off to a great start here, people. But Bye Bye Nerdie, Season 12. Jack, have you seen this one?
I've seen it a handful of times for sure. I don't remember liking it very much.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's the one, I think Kathy Griffin is the nerd, not the nerd, the bully, and Lisa invents like an anti-bully
I mean,
thing.
it's one of those season
whatever.
12s where at the time I was like, oh my God, this is so much worse than everything that came before.
Right.
And now,
surely the show will end soon.
Yeah, now 15 years later, I'm probably going to like it a lot more than... We've had a bad run this month, so...
Right. Well, we'll find out what we think about it in a moment. We're going to take a break and watch it. If you need to watch it, you can do that on simpsonsworld.com or wherever you're getting episodes that you've done for the past 72 editions of this show. And you can check out our website. It's weepodcast.com. That's weepodcast.com. Click on our Amazon links. Help support the show. We get a small cut when you do that. And Jack,
there's some new stuff on
there's some goodies on there.
There's some goodies.
Yeah,
or at least one goodie right now.
There's one goodie with another one on the way.
We're doing a Sync Points.
For Batman has come out. As of this recording.
The unofficial sequel to Home Alone 2.
Yes.
Batman 1989.
Which came out 3 years before Home Alone 2.
They planned ahead. They knew. Obviously Batman v Superman is coming out in a few weeks, so we decided we wanted to do a Batman commentary and a Superman commentary. We wanted to do either Man of Steel or the Superman original movie.
Right.
But the only Superman movie streaming right now is Superman
Returns is streaming on HBO.
Yeah. But Batman, the original, the great Michael Keaton movie, is on Netflix.
Right. So you have no excuse to not buy this
unless you don't
watch
have Netflix.
And listen to it. You have Netflix. Come on.
I don't know, a lot of our foreign listeners, isn't Netflix banned in most countries?
No. Well, there might be different things on Netflix in different countries. Okay. So you maybe don't have Batman streaming for Netflix.
But you know Batman. It's Batman. Come on.
It's Batman. You've seen it.
So anyway, Batman comes out. Batman will be out by the time you hear this. And in a few days, we're going to release Superman. We're releasing them 1 week apart. Give you some time to really cherish and absorb the Batman.
Absolutely. Our wonderful commentary. And it's a competition because it's Batman v Superman. So whichever one gets the most sales wins.
I guess,
so buy them both if you don't want Superman to die.
We orchestrated this with Warner Brothers, and whatever Sync Point sells more, that character will die at the end of Batman v Superman.
It's just like Jason Todd. This is the phone number.
So I'm assuming Superman will die because
Batman's on Netflix,
we're doing Superman Returns.
Right. People don't love Superman Returns,
and obviously, there's no deal if you buy both. It's $2 each. It's going to be $4. We can't we can't work out a system to.
There's no Howie Mandel here, all right? It's not deal or no deal. It's just no deal.
It's just no deal.
We're both the banker. And we don't have OCD.
Yeah, so we appreciate you paying for content when we give out so much for free, but that's why we have to charge every once in a while to keep the other stuff free.
Exactly.
So we appreciate you guys when you do support us, and you have been great. So thank you so much, and hopefully check out both.
Yeah, hopefully we will. And hopefully you're checking out 90s Percentile, which is free, and that comes out every Monday. So check that out as well.
And hopefully you're checking out this episode, and you're not turning it off right now and being like, I got enough. I get it. They didn't like it. They didn't like the bully
sell
episode.
us on things. All right, we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
Come on, people! Move it! I want to see some sweat.
I am not mastering another stare until you explain the purpose of this monstrous experiment.
I believe the key to bully nerd antagonism lies in your drippings.
Then I shall drip like a pot roast.
So that was Bye Bye Nerdie.
It sure was, Jack.
Yeah, it was not a bad episode. Better than I expected.
It was, yeah.
We'll get into it. I feel bad because we were just talking to Ricky Gregory yesterday, the guy that suggested the episode twice. He hated it so much he suggested it twice.
Yes.
And I think we beg to differ. Maybe we'll be able to convince you.
We'll see.
Ruh-roh,
Ricky.
Real quick plot recap. So after an Itchy and Scratchy commercial, the kids are running late for school. Marge is freaking out and tries to get them ready before the bus can get to the house. She doesn't. They just missed the bus. She tries to outrun the bus with the car, and she gets them to school basically just in time. And that's when Otto realizes he forgot to pick up the new student, and we meet this new student. Her name is Francine. She's a little bit of a bigger, older girl. She's a redhead. Basically, she's a female bully. We don't know that yet. Lisa just feels bad that she's a loner and doesn't have any friends. So Lisa goes and tries to make friends with her and gets punched in the face, gets a black eye for her troubles. And that's when they establish Francine as a bully, and she just bullies all of the nerds in the school and keeps beating everybody up. And Lisa wants to know why. Why is she only picking on the nerds and not the non-nerds? I was going to say the cool kids, but Bart is not a cool kid.
No.
He's just not a nerd.
Bart's a freak, as opposed to
As
geek.
the geek. Okay, I'll take that. Does that mean Bart smokes weed under the bleachers?
Yep, and that's exactly what it means.
When the bullies are not there, throwing tomatoes at Martin.
Yeah.
So it turns into a bit of a mystery episode where Lisa's following clues, and we'll talk about it. But pretty much each scene progresses and builds on the last of her trying to solve the mystery of why is she bullying the people she bullies. It turns out to be pheromones. She can smell the nerd sweat. The nerds give off a certain pheromone. She smells it, and it makes her go crazy.
Poindextrose.
Poindextrose. So she goes to a science composium and comes up with a cure for bullies, which is basically just salad dressing that masks the pheromone scent. And it really kind of just fizzles out there, and the episode ends with her bullying everybody, beating up all the adult scientists at the composium. The composium?
Symposium.
Not symposium. Why is it
I don't know. I don't think a composium is
I don't think that's a word. Well, now it is.
All right.
Welcome to the worst episode ever, Composium. Anyway, there's also a decent B plot where a woman comes and tries to sell Homer and Marge on baby-proofing the house. Homer doesn't want to pay for it, so he decides to make his own baby-proofing industry. And does until he puts out all the industries that thrive on baby injuries, and he feels bad, so he tells people to hurt their babies.
Yeah, basically. That's another one, and that also kind of just fizzles out. Everything kind of fizzles in this episode.
Yeah, it does, and it was a little bit disappointing, but I gotta say,
we'll talk about
this episode was way better than I expected, way better than I remembered.
The first act of this episode, I would say, was
very
just,
solid,
delightful. We were laughing.
Maybe the best one. I remember there was that way back in episode 4 we covered. The one where they go to Guantanamo Bay,
right?
And we remember
Bart Mangled Bay,
right. And the first act was really solid. I'd say this was better than that.
It probably was.
Yeah.
I mean, that episode has settled nicely into the upper middle of the list.
Yeah.
So we'll see where this one winds up.
Our list, man boobs.
Yes.
if we have that ever widening. I'm just using my own third aging body as the metaphor for our worst episode ever list.
So we
have the expanding middle, and we also have that upper middle man boobs.
Where things are just beginning to cusp.
Exactly.
That's where this episode might be. We'll see.
And funny, if my girlfriend watches one of those episodes, the same look is on her face that when I take off my shirt at night.
Absolutely.
So, I got to stop eating those cookies.
You did tell me you had a tin of cookies for breakfast just before we started recording.
You brought them over.
I didn't want to eat them, and apparently you did.
Well, you're a stronger man than me.
But speaking of breakfast, this episode
great.
starts with an Itchy and Scratchy breakfast commercial that I thought was delightful.
Superb. It was superb.
It was so good.
And it was nice that it wasn't an Itchy and Scratchy cartoon. It was something a
right.
little
It was
bit
something
different.
a little different. It was a commercial for Stabios. It
Their
was
breakfast cereal.
basically Lucky Charms, but Itchy and Scratchy-ified.
Yeah, and it was all over the top silly, and Stabios just is right from the get-go. That's just such a silly name.
Great name. You got Itchy and Scratchy in the kitchen that these two kids come into, and it's like, oh, eat Stabios, and Itchy kills Scratchy, force feeds him Stabios, and slices open his guts.
It's really graphic.
And it's very graphic. But I just love the image of like the kids eating cereal out of this cavity inside Scratchy.
Imagine eating cereal out of a dead cat's
I've
belly.
done it. I'm a cat owner. I've had to do it.
You've had to split your cat open and eat.
Sometimes, as a cat owner, you have to deal with these
I know
things.
we're not doing tangents today because we're low on time. Real quick though, I got to tell about I went to the deli yesterday. And I saw there were 2 bodega cats in New York. A lot of corner stores and bodegas have cats to help with mice.
Right.
And there was these 2 new kitties. I know because I go there every week and I've never seen them before. And they were very obviously kitties. They were young.
Aww.
And I was like, oh, hi kitties. And then I noticed there was just a dead mouse on the floor with its throat completely ripped open.
Right, and they're both dripping with blood.
Yeah, and the cats are just like circling it, and like they killed it clearly, but they didn't quite know what to do. Like an adult cat would have either eaten it or taken it somewhere. They were like poking at it, and they were like, "Wow!" It was so adorable, but also gross because of the throat ripped out.
Well, they hunt the mice, but what do? It's like I'm a dog catching a car. What am I going to do if I get it?
Yeah, the cats were Joker. The cats were Ledger. Check out our sync points
for a different Batman movie.
No, it was great, and it was nice that it wasn't a cartoon because it's still the exact same kind of violent humor, but just in a slightly different setting, and it makes all the difference. It makes it feel fresh.
It did, and there were a lot of little tweaks, and this kind of went for the episode as a whole, where a lot of little tweaks just made it that much funnier, where you're not only eating out of Scratchy's body, but then Scratchy goes gray and goes, so cold!
Yeah, and
like,
he goes,
so horrible.
It's also healthy and vitamin, and just dies. And she also killed their mother.
Yeah, they look for there's like, oh, your mom's still in bed, or at least most of her is, and he's decapitated her.
Why would you want Hitchy to murder your mother?
Yeah, we were laughing at all of this, and then it cuts back to the kids watching it, and Lisa's like, I think that might have gone over the line, and Homer just goes, what do you think? Sex sells.
Yeah, that's a very weird button.
Is Homer aroused by decapitated bomb heads?
I think Homer watches those like weird industrial.
I think he does.
What's the term?
Snuff films?
Snuff films, yeah.
I think he might. But overall, it was just a phenomenal opening.
Yeah,
it was very funny, very weird.
And not just the itch and scratching. We really did like this whole first act. Because then it follows, they really set up to that vibe of what it's like to be at home in the morning before work and school. I haven't had that feeling in a very long time because I don't live with a family anymore.
Yeah.
And I have my morning routine, but it's a little more solo. And it felt very nostalgic. It felt like that's what it was like being home with the TV on. And Homer has a great line where he says, where Marge is like, "Aren't you running late?" And Homer says, "Well, they told me if I was late one more time, I'm fired. So I'm just not going to take the chance." And it's great. It makes sense for Homer.
Good rationalization for Homer.
Exactly. It's a great rationalization.
Yeah.
And it's just funny. Yeah. So Marge realizes the kids are running late. The bus is coming. She can see it down the street.
Right.
So they do a quick, I don't know if it's called a montage, but.
Yeah, I wrote montage. I don't know. She's trying to get the kids ready very quickly, and it's set to the I don't know the term for that song.
I can't think of the name of it. I don't think there's a term for it. I think it has a name.
No, there's a term for all things.
It's but it has that hectic
hurry up. Exactly, because the bus is 2 blocks away. Yeah. She's trying to brush their teeth at the same time, which was cute. She puts them in the wrong outfits and then calls Bart Lisa.
Yeah, that was all cute. Bart's like, he's in the dress and pearls. He's like, "Mom, I think you got us mixed up." "Not now, Lisa."
Yeah, right. Yeah. She just kind of drags them away. She jams fruit down their throats for breakfast, and Bart chokes on a grape, and then Homer catches and eats it, which I thought was gross but funny.
It had the energy. It was just moving. Marge was very Marge. Everybody was themselves.
Yeah, it was very well done opening, and I love when Marge drags him into the car because she had just missed Otto, and she's like, "I'm going to catch up to the bus and get you kids on it," because she doesn't want to drive all the way to the school. And she's honking next to Otto, and Otto's like, "You want to drag?" And he revs it up, and all the kids just go, "Yay!"
Yeah, I love whenever either the adults or the kids just say, do a mob yay at something ridiculous, and it makes sense. Of course, the kids are going to love to drag race on the bus.
I mean, you know that I embrace the pain and misery of children, but seeing kids happy actually also makes me laugh. Yes,
really. Is that why you like to hurt them? Yeah. Because then when you stop hurting them, they're also very happy.
And I'm happy both ways. It's win-win for me. It's lose-win for the kid.
Well, lose-win's still better than lose-lose.
It's better than win, lose, or draw.
That was a
pretty good show, actually.
So what's funny is when Marge is pulling up and she's trying to get Otto's attention. Yeah. The first thought in my head was that just reminded me of Speed, shot for shot when Keanu Reeves is in the convertible with that guy with the dreads. Yep. And he's doing the bomb on bus. It looked just like that. And then Milhouse says a line. He says, "This is just like Speed 2, except with a bus instead of a boat." Yeah. First of all, it's a brilliant line. It's a great line. Speed is with a bus. Speed 2 is with a boat.
And it's one of those lines that is in our collective heads.
I was just shocked that this was from this episode.
I had no idea it was this episode. I would have said season 10.
Yeah, and I love that line. I say it all the time. There's always a funny context a situation where the line is perfect for it, and I use it a lot. And it's just really funny to me that season 12, and I noticed this with other season 12 episodes we've done, where they are these individual lines and jokes that in my brain, the way they're burned in are in the exact same neurons or whatever, that part of the brain that holds the classic jokes. Like the storylines, like the Francine story, I don't consider part of the classic era, but some of the jokes I individually do.
Well, it's interesting because we watched this, we watched the classic episodes growing up, and this was kind of... We were still watching it in the same thread, I guess, of our viewership as a Simpsons fan.
Yeah, we're at home we live with our parents. We're watching it Sunday
We're still
night.
growing up.
Yeah,
we were, juniors in high school, I think, when this aired?
Yeah. Why is my pee-pee getting big?
Oh, man, I got so much to learn about life. And I'm learning about nerd pheromones.
I would always, me, 32-year-old Jack, would always go back and narrate what was going on inside my... I was just like, what would 30... Well, actually, I'm 31. But I'm almost 32. And I was like, what would a 31-year-old Jack be saying in this situation? A job? Was I ready? And then
Were they serious?
And then I'd play 60s music, like turn
of course.
in my head.
Absolutely.
Wonder Years tangent over.
Yes. But I think it's interesting because we watched this when it first aired and have kind of lumped it in with the classic years, but kind of with a bit of distance.
We're picking and choosing too. The Speed 2 line. I knew it was always a little bit more of a post-classic line, or at least later line, but it really is in. I don't separate it from I sleep in a drawer or
because
whatever.
I feel like when we were in high school and had just watched this episode, we probably quoted that a lot to each other, and we were probably quoting all the classic episodes, and that's why it's all been jumbled together in our heads, even though. Right. This is a good episode, but worse than, say, like season 6.
Exactly, and there's going to be other lines I'd like to bring up later. That this one's definitely the most burned in, but there are other lines I was like, oh, I use that a lot as well. But it doesn't. It's not just that. It really extends to other situations. It's funny. My last 2 dioramas. The one I did last year and the one I did this week for Diorama Rama.
And by the way, photos of those dioramas should be on our Reddit by the time you're hearing this. So check that out, r/worstepisode ever.
Sorry. Yeah, last year I posted a picture of mine, and I did the cone of, I forget the name of it. It was Bart's cone of...
Cone of Ignorance, I believe
Cone
it
of
is.
Ignorance, yeah, and it shows all the students. And I did it, and I was so proud of myself. And then I was like shocked when after I built it, I was like, what episode is this from? I want to get the quote right. And I look it up, I was like, oh no, it's a season 11. And I was just like, I was so mad at myself that I was bringing a diorama from an episode I hate. It's the Mark McGuire episode, which I don't like.
That's not a bad episode.
I mean, I would
like to do it on this show.
I know, I haven't seen it in a while.
That'd be a good one.
But I was so mad at myself for bringing a post-classic diorama, and I was already doing the podcast at that point. And then this year...
That is a 90s episode, though. It's 99.
Yeah, and this year I did a season 8, which is I consider classic, but I did... My diorama was a television with The Man Without a Face playing on it, a rental tape on top, and Mother had covered up her half of the TV, and I didn't even know he had a problem.
Couldn't even tell you had a problem.
So that's my diorama. There'll be pictures up of that.
Yeah, for sure.
But I got a lot of blank stares from some people that I know, like friend of the show Nick Noga, because they don't really watch season 8 that much. They
really?
Yeah, they skew a little bit earlier.
Okay,
so
that's interesting.
Yeah, so not so much season 8 because I really do think season 8's a classic.
Absolutely.
But it's funny that a lot of the gags I just go to are a little bit later in the run.
Yeah.
I was just really surprised at that Speed 2 line. I really the parts of my brain that light up if you had a scan on it are the same parts that would light up if you gave me a season 3 line.
Yeah, they're all jumbled in there.
Not the episode.
Not the whole episode, but this whole opening was great.
Really solid.
And one thing I really liked was the chase sequence aspect to it that I think we both think was an homage to Terminator 2.
Yeah, they're in an aqueduct like in LA.
Yeah.
And there's lots of movies that have races in that, Grease and other ones. But the music was very Terminator 2.
I love in Grease when they're racing the school bus.
And the T-1000 is chasing John Travolta.
Hey, T-1000, why don't you join the Grease Lightning? I don't know.
Rizzo is dead. How's Wolfie? Wolfie's fine.
Wolfie's fine.
Rizzo is dead.
I think Grease and a Terminator crossover would make a lot of sense.
The way they're doing Men in Black 21 Jump Street crossover now, so why not do Terminator Grease?
We just had Grease live. Now we'll do Terminator live, and then we'll do Terminator Grease 2 live.
I mean, you could do Grysisis and spell it with Grysis.
It's not any more confusing than Terminator Genesis.
No, I mean, so every Terminator movie has had a different actor play John Connor.
Okay,
who would play John Connor in the Terminator Grease crossover?
I think
Would it be John Travolta?
I think we just get John
Just get
Travolta. Well, because he's traveling back in time. He's Danny.
Old. Yeah, he's
now.
old Danny.
Yeah.
I've never seen Grease.
Danny Zuko.
I've watched parts of it. I don't think I've ever sat down and watched it.
He's gonna come back and be like, you gotta stop it. The Terminator's gonna come. If the pink ladies are allowed to go to the dance.
Summer love, Judgment Day.
That's
Tell me more. Did he New Cola Cities? Tell me more. Did he say I'll be back? Oh, I'll be back. Be back. I don't know the song well enough to continue this parody. The next scene is also great. After the chase, so like we said, Marge beats the bus finally, but they actually are in front of the school. She's like, "Get on the bus! I got the bus." And like, we're already at school.
They're at school.
But Marge is like, "Give me this! I need this!" Or I forget what the line was.
Yes,
don't take this away from me.
Yeah, but then the kids they get out of the car and walk onto the bus, and Marge leaves, and the bus pulls up 3 feet. And then
exactly.
Stops.
They're at the school.
It was such a great visual gag.
Right. And we'll get into this later too. But the direction of the episode, the way the frames and shots they chose to depict a lot of the humor and the jokes were perfect.
Well, since you're mentioning it, just very quickly, this episode was directed by what's her name?
Quentin Tarantino.
Yep, Quentin Tarantino. No, Lauren McMullen, who apparently worked on Mission Hill, and then when it was canceled, moved over to The Simpsons. And I think she might have only worked on season 12.
I don't know Mission Hill that well. It was on that long ago.
Yes, it was one of those, there was kind of an animation boom, I guess, in the late 90s, early 2000s. That's when Futurama and Family Guy, the PJs, home movies.
Yes, yeah.
There was a whole string of new animated primetime shows, and Mission Hill was one of them. It only lasted a season, but it's a very good show. Bill Oakley, Josh Weinstein, who were on
they're great
classic
Simpsons
episodes
writers,
of The Simpsons. Yeah, they were the creators of that show.
I gotta check that out.
I think it's on Netflix. It might be.
Yeah, and then the scene that follows is great. So Otto, like I said, he realizes they forgot to pick up the new student. He goes, all right, we got to go pick her up. And instead of letting all the kids off, he just goes and
he just
backs the
guns
bus
it
up.
back.
Yeah. And the kids are excited, like a new kid. And they all start picturing in their heads. We get thought bubbles of what the new kid might look like. And this was very well done. It was all character-based. I forget what Sherry and Terry pictured.
Sherry was picturing like a dreamy-looking boy riding a horse, and there was like a rainbow in the background.
Because that's her ideal new student.
Right. Ralph pictures, I think it was just a goat.
Can.
Right. But the absolute best one was Nelson pictures the new kid as some sort of octopus monster.
Mutant squid. Purple
just like
mutant squid.
Holding Skinner and Krabobble and kind of torturing them, I guess. And he's just like, I hope it's that. It's
like
so good.
surreal, but it's also what a 10-year-old boy, like it's not ridiculous. Like it's a grounded surreal.
Yes. And we kind of skipped over this, but I love that the opening, the chase to school, ties into the main. It's kind of like a relay race where it's passing the baton to the main story.
It's a non sequitur first act in that it really has nothing to do with anything else, but there is a bridge.
The school bus being the bridge, okay, now that we've caught up to the school bus, oh wait, we have to get the new kid, and that hands it over to the plot with the new kid.
It's a really little thing of having the school bus go to there, but it makes all the difference. It really
does. It's not a jarring thing like we had with Forrest Wiggum, where it's like we're trying to get out of work, and now we're trying to do this, and then all the fast food buildings explode. And none of it makes any sense.
If you're doing a frenetic Simpsons episode where ideally you have 3 jokes a page, 3 jokes a minute, and it's really rapid fire, and you're trying to get as much in, you can picture it something like a roller coaster. You're being strapped in, and you're being taken on a ride. And like you said, it's jarring if that first act really has nothing to do with it. It's almost like you're making this like 90-degree right angle, and you're getting whiplash. It's great for the roller coaster to like do more of a loop. All of a sudden, you're going up the hill. That's the first act, and boom, now we're going down.
Right.
I guess what I'm trying to say is there's a flow to it.
There's more of a flow, exactly, and we don't want to get whiplash. If Iron Man 2 taught us anything, it's that we don't want to get a whiplash.
Unless you're an aspiring jazz drummer, then you do want to get whiplash.
That's true. There you go.
That is my tempo.
All right, but anyway.
So they pick up Francine. She's redhead. She's everybody's disappointed that they're not the ideal student they had in their head. I love she's walking down the aisle and she passes a kid we've never seen before.
No, and we'll never see again.
Yeah, and he's always nerd. He's got acne and braces and what's it called? A night brace. Like
he had like a whole mouth
contraption.
gear.
Yeah, mouth gear. And he had a t-shirt that said "Frankie says relax." And he goes, "She'll never fit in." And
that was good.
It was like Frankie says relax in 2001 on a 10-year-old is perfect.
Right.
That's a great Simpsons joke.
Yep, it was even before Zoolander had come out. So then that's kind of it for that
Yeah,
line.
well,
then
they
we
set
cut
it up
over
a little bit.
Okay.
Lisa sets it up, even though she doesn't act on it. She goes,
She says,
I
like,
feel-
someone should talk
It's
to
really
her.
hard being the news. Someone should, and that sets up a great conflict for this show,
Right.
for this episode, because
Well, Lisa
it
wants to do
makes
the right thing.
She wants to do the right thing, but it's also a little bit of a nosy meddling. Like, it's not really your place and your
As is
business.
Lisa's wont,
Exactly.
yeah.
It's kind of it's kind of taking both sides of that. Good, she's a very good-hearted person. It's very nice of her to want to do it.
Yeah.
But there's also, you get the sense there's a little bit of selfishness in it. Like, she's kind of just like
She
condescending.
wants to be the one to embrace
Exactly.
the new kid.
She's doing
Yeah.
it for selfish reasons.
She's being altruistic for selfish reasons.
Exactly. So it's very subtle, but it's great to have like that motivation, and it makes the conflict of Francine eventually bullying her that much stronger.
Right.
Like, it came from. It wasn't just totally. I could see a season 24 episode or season wherever we are. Where suddenly this new kid and she just starts beating up Lisa. Or,
Right.
we open up on her getting pounded, and it's great
Right,
that
it's just, there's a new kid.
her stepping in and being altruistic and maybe also being selfishly altruistic. That is what brings the
Like we're in the
conflict
status
to her.
quo. We see the conflict coming, then there's conflict, then the conflict's resolved. Like a story.
Yeah, exactly. So you have the bully and the nerd. It's like what is it? The metaphor for God. The
I don't know where you're going with this.
impenetrable force against
And the immovable object.
Immovable object. So a bully and a nerd.
The
is-
unstoppable force and the
yeah,
immovable object.
So you have the
Yeah.
immovable object and the unstoppable force, and that makes a great conflict because which one will budge? And that's your
Right.
nerd and your. Whereas now newer episodes, I feel like they'll have one. They'll have like an unstoppable object. And they'll have just like a pudding, and the pudding just like kind of splatters against it, and there's no story. Does
So-
that make sense?
Sort of. So pudding splash is what we're calling these new episodes.
Yeah, exactly.
Just
exactly.
pudding everywhere.
And like, it's great that you have the immovable object, but you need that unstoppable force. That's what makes a really great conflict.
Right.
And it was nice that this had that. It wasn't pudding
though,
splash.
though it is nice to have pudding because pudding's delicious.
Pudding's delicious.
Yeah,
There's
I
not
li-
a bad flavor of pudding. Maybe blood pudding. What's the secret ingredient?
It's blood.
Ugh.
Yeah. Sorry, British listeners, but your food is gross. So
I bought a cookbook with really nice pictures in it, and I was so excited. And then
Yeah.
I realized as I was going through it, it was a British cookbook. I was like, I don't like any of this.
it was like, put all your blood in the sausage and then eat it.
It was. It
you're a
talked to me.
vampire.
It was audible. It was an audio cookbook with great pictures.
Of course, yeah. It's just like, okay, this is a picture of sausage and it looks gross.
Yeah,
and you
you
don't want
just
to eat it.
described the pictures. Yeah.
That's perfect. Then we cut to Homer and Marge, and I guess Homer has stayed home from work,
Right.
and the kids are now at school, and they're just sitting there, and it's like, oh, it's so nice to have some alone time, and they have nothing to say to each other, and it's just kind of awkward.
Yeah.
And Homer
There's a
starts
dark
to say,
line, yeah.
I think our marriage is, and then the
Ding
doorbell
dong, yeah.
rings.
That's
that was
dark,
pretty dark.
yeah.
We don't know where he's going. Maybe he was going to say awesome, but it didn't seem
I think
like
he was
that's what
going
he's
to
going to say.
say, I think our marriage is
Crumbling,
ending.
falling
Yeah.
apart. Yeah, that's what it seemed like. And then when they answered the door and it was a baby proofer, I didn't realize that was this episode.
Yeah, I remember this
the
plot
baby
very
proofing
well.
episode.
Yeah.
And it's a woman voiced by Tress MacNeille, who does a lot of great voices on this show and many other shows, coming in, and she says, "Your baby is dead," and they scream, obviously, and it's just kind of the fear tactics that people in
Right,
these
right.
kind of safety industries use. Really good satirical way
Yeah.
of doing that, I thought. Because she's like, oh, no, well, that's what I would say if anything happened. But,
But
no,
to be
seriously,
serious, yeah.
your baby Maggie Simpson is dead, and they freak
Yeah,
out.
Yeah, it was a good one, too.
Yeah, it was good. And so I also like the sequence where she pretends to be a baby. This was
Yeah.
an excellent little sequence where she pretends to be a
She's
baby.
she's on her hands and knees. She's
Right,
talking
she's
in
putting
baby
on a bonnet.
talk.
She's
I
like,
thought it
this
was
is
a
this is
little
what would
much,
happen.
yeah.
It was a little much to see her
The baby
for so
talk.
long
Goo
with the
goo
baby
gaga,
talk.
yeah.
Yes, and they also had this weird moment where they're like, for a baby, she's got a big caboose,
Yeah,
and Homer's like, yeah, you're right.
No,
that was
Homer
weird.
says that. Marge says, "Yeah, you're right. She does have a big caboose." That was
kind of weird. But
But the gag that comes up next is such a great. It's one of my favorite gags in
'cause-
the entire series.
So it was not a what do we call it when the means don't justify the end.
It's the-
this time the means did justify the
Right.
end, and then there were multiple ends, and they each got better
it
than
was,
the last.
It was just perfectly executed. So she's on her hands and knees, and she's doing,
She's crawling through the kitchen, and
where
she
can-
goes under the sink.
Yeah, where you have all your cleaning supplies, and you don't
Right.
want the baby drinking bleach by accident.
Right.
And she grabs one of the bottles from under the sink, and she says, "Look how easy it is to get for a baby to get this cap off."
Right, and it's child-proofed, and she cannot get it open, and she's beating it on the ground, and then ultimately puts it under the sink, and
That was
finally
great
gets it open.
because they take their time with the gag. They don't rush. She stands up. She turns the sink on. You just hear the audio design's great. You just
Yeah.
hear the running water on the thing, which is a thing we've all done.
Right,
And she like
even though it wouldn't help for this,
Yeah.
metal is the only thing that opens. But.
and she like rolls her eyes back like she's tapping her foot, like waiting for the water to.
Right.
Like they took their time with
There's
it,
a
and that
build.
made it. The build made it so much better.
Right.
And finally, she bends it and cracks it and
She finally
smashes
gets it open. Marge gasps, she got it open,
And
which
she-
was great.
And
then she says,
wait, if that was the button right there, Marge,
Yeah, it would've
she
been
got
great.
It would have been great.
but it wasn't. It goes on, and then the woman says, see how easy it is? Your baby could have drank this Simulac baby formula.
The joke that
Brilliant.
the entire time it was actually very safe
Yeah.
baby formula. It's so
the,
good.
the exact note that I wrote down is, that's a good-ass gag.
It was a
And it
good
was.
ass
It was a good-ass
gag.
gag.
It was a
They need more
Great-ass gag.
GAGs, good-ass gags, which spells gag.
What's the extra G for?
for getting your own gag? I don't know.
It was the direction was perfect, the pacing was perfect,
Yeah.
the actual joke,
It was
the
very
button
funny.
was perfect. It was such a good gag.
built and built
One of
and
the
built.
best gags,
And all of
we've
that
covered
for
on this
baby
show.
formula.
Yeah,
Well worth it.
One of the
Well
best
worth
gags
it.
we covered on the show. Let's
Yeah.
talk about this. Let's just bang out this entire subplot since
Okay.
we're here. I just want to say overall, I thought it was a very strong subplot. And
It was.
stronger for a post-classic subplot. You know, definitely compared to the egg and the ding dong
the-
doorbell.
right.
Yeah, it was a great one, but I wouldn't call it a classic subplot because it had those traces of, we were calling it earlier in the run of our show, stand-up humor, where they're commenting on this new trend of modern parenting and baby-proofing your home.
Right.
That was something that was starting to thrive in the late 90s and becoming a thing.
Yeah.
You know, helped by internet and
And these fear tactics that this woman was
fear
using.
tactics, and you also had like a lot of books about modern parenting, and you
Right.
had forums online, you know, people on the internet for the first time, younger parents,
Mm-hmm.
all talking to each other. So this idea of baby proofing was really becoming a thing then. It wasn't really a thing when we were growing up. People weren't worried about covering up outlets and shit.
No, we had lawn darts and things.
Yeah, no. So this was like a new topical thing, and this felt more like the post-classic topical. We're going to
I don't know.
basically like that helicopter parenting episode we did covered.
I don't know that I agree with you. I see what you're saying, but I think it was handled in a better way
It was
than
handled
like
in
that
a much
helicopter
better way,
parenting
but I
thing.
think it's coming from that same kind of lame place of,
Well, look.
hey, so I read about helicopter parenting in this magazine. We should do a thing on this. Hey, I read about baby proofing in this magazine. We should do a
So-
thing about this. I just think they did it a lot better.
Wikipedia,
Uh-huh.
the only place I learn anything.
It's the source of all truth.
This subplot came from Don Payne, was one of the writers of this episode, and he and his wife, who was pregnant at the time or maybe had just given birth, were visited by a door-to-door
Yeah.
baby proofing person and basically had this same exact thing happen and was like, oh, they intentionally try to make you feel like an awful person,
Right,
and that
right.
kind of spun into this.
But
So I
but
see,
it is a topic. Like when I
Yeah.
think of the classic era Simpsons, usually a plot wasn't based on something that's just starting to happen. It was more universal. You don't really have like. I'm trying to think of
I don't
like
know if
what
that's
was
true.
I guess maybe there's some like Tupperware parties. I don't know if there's a Tupperware party in the classic Simpsons. I'm
Not
trying to
that I
think
know
of
of.
things that were only of that 5-10 year period or just became a thing.
Well, but I don't think, this is not, baby proofing is still a thing.
Yeah, but it wasn't a thing before then. At the
Right.
time, it was topical.
But I think they are, they're catching on to a current event
Right.
and kind of putting a bit of satire on it, which I think is something
I guess
they,
that the
they
fact
did
that,
well.
that it's a current event. I guess I'm used to the Simpsons doing more kind of universal things.
Right.
I don't know. That's not. I mean,
I think it is pretty
They definitely
universal,
have.
I mean.
They definitely have smaller gags in the classic era that are topical. Very very specific references, but rare to see a whole plot dedicated to a new trend.
Well, I like that they, the woman comes in and the estimate is, I'm going to be rich. And then Homer looks at it and just throws her out.
Yeah, yeah.
And says, I'll do it myself.
He thought it was $3 at first, but that was
Right,
the
that
price
was the price
tag
of
on
the
the
clipboard that she had. But I like, there's a scene later where he is going to baby-proof the house himself.
Oh wait, before that, there is
Okay.
a nice little button to that scene where she goes, "Are you sure I can't help you, baby?" And he's like, "No," and he kicked her out.
Right.
And Maggie just suddenly falls out of the second story window.
Oh, I
and
missed that.
Oh, the baby lady catches her and actually saved Maggie.
Oh, I didn't even see
she-
that.
And then I said to you, "Oh, look, they added an extra window. Usually the front of the
saw the
house
window, yeah.
has just two
Right,
windows
on the
on the
second
sides.
floor.
And this time they animated a window in the middle between the two windows because that's where Maggie needed to fall out to land in
it.
front of the door. It's one of
Yeah.
those instances where they change the geography of the house to
Like-
fit one single joke.
Right, like how in Principal Charming, the school had a clock tower that has never
exactly.
been seen again.
And we're okay with that basically because they've been doing it since day one.
Yeah,
so
it's-
that's
it's-
fine.
it's fine.
But yeah, they added this extra window just for the scene. But it was a great
Just to
little
drop a
button
baby
for
out a window.
This horrible woman who's just trying to make some money. She actually does save Maggie,
Right.
save her life.
Yeah, so then the next scene in this kind of B-plot is Homer trying to baby-proof the house, and Maggie picks up a nail gun and basically is firing nails at Homer for a good minute. It pierces both of his ears and pins him to the wall at one point.
Hard to watch.
Hard to watch, but it was pretty funny.
It wasn't
you know,
over the top.
it works for me. And, Maggie has a long history of attacking Homer.
Yeah, it
so
reminded.
it
That's
works.
what I was gonna say. It reminded me of it was a little redundant of that great episode where Maggie is like,
Where Maggie hits him with the mallet.
Yeah.
But there was a great part where Homer has encased the phone in concrete because he says we got to baby-proof the phone.
I always remember it being styrofoam, and it looks like styrofoam.
It does look like
and I was
styrofoam.
surprised when he said the word concrete.
But I like how Marge is the one like, well, what are the buttons on the phone going to do? And Homer says, what? What are you kidding me? She could call and order poison. And he dials a poison line.
With a carrot.
Yeah, with a carrot. And the phone says,
It's Hank Azaria's regular voice.
this is the poison delivery service. A gift bag of poison is on its way.
It's like that's one of
That's
those
great.
really silly, surreal jokes that
Yeah.
makes no
sense at all.
It's not grounded, but it worked. It
totally
worked.
worked.
The
Totally
and
worked.
Hank Azaria helped. The delivery was perfect.
Right. And there's also a scene where...
Oh, in that same
with the
scene,
bunnies?
that same scene ends with him getting shot again with a nail. The nail goes through his hand.
Right,
And he
right.
just gets really angry and goes to Marge, get her out
outta
of here.
here.
And
Yeah.
I thought that was like threatening. I guess he's going to kill Maggie if she does it again. But
You
it
know.
made sense because he's just sick of getting shot with nails.
Right.
It was a great little button. It was another great button. In
It's kill or be killed when it's babies and nail guns.
Lots of great endings for scenes.
Yeah, we skipped over the bunny thing, which was they wanted to put caps in the electrical outlets, so Homer instead drew bunny faces on them. And I liked Marge said, "But Maggie's not afraid of bunnies," and Homer said, "She will be."
So he
That's
wants
another
her to
bit
get
of menace.
electrocuted.
Yeah, he's gonna instill in her a fear of
Yeah.
bunnies somehow.
I mean, then
That's
you might as
good.
well just not draw the bunnies and have her get a fear of sockets.
That's also a good point.
I mean, how are the buttons dangerous?
Baby could order poison.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
Poison delivery service. A gift basket of poisons is on its way.
But then we go into a montage where Homer, his baby proofing service is called We Care.
Yeah, he decides to start one
WEE
because
Care.
it was the other one was too
.com.
expensive. Yeah, and it was WEE Care. We care.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, we don't care about
Oh,
post-classic
hey-o.
Simpsons.
Bazinga.
Well, we do care. We make a whole
Yeah, we do. It's
weekly
our
podcast.
It's our podcast. But there was, it was kind of a bit of diminishing returns because I don't
Yeah.
think the episode got any funnier than the woman with the baby Simulac.
Yeah, it wasn't as great, but I thought for a montage to push a B plot forward, because really a B plot doesn't have time for real scenes. You usually do have to do a montage.
Right.
This one was good. It wasn't an 8-second montage. They took their time with
There
it.
was some more meat to it.
Yeah, exactly. And it was basically 3 separate scenes of Homer doing his Homer way of baby proofing, which is great
Right.
because it's not just baby proofing; it's how would Homer Simpson
right.
baby proof.
Big
and they
dum-dum
do
Homer.
a good job with it. I think though the order was off because the first 2 were great and the third one was.
Well, it starts with
was weaker.
Homer at Apu's, and he puts.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Was before the
He
montage,
puts
yeah.
we're number 1 things on Shiva, so there's no more Shiva related pokings.
Yeah,
and
well,
Apu
that's
is
fine.
delighted about
yeah.
that.
Oh, yeah, we'll talk about.
Yeah, and then the actual montage picks up. I don't remember what the first one was. Was the first one the Ralph Wiggum one?
The first one was Hibbert's pool.
Oh, right, and he fills it with Jello.
Yeah, he puts Jello into the pool so that it becomes Jello, and you basically
Right.
you can't fall in the pool and
Right,
drown.
so the baby
and the
can't
kid
drown.
just falls into the pool and is like bouncing around, having fun.
Right, right,
And
right.
then
That was
he
cute.
takes a like a champagne flute and scoops it up full
Yeah.
of blue Jello, puts some whipped cream on, and gives it to Hibbert. Which,
Yeah.
by the way, it would be
Pretty gross.
Chlorine,
Lots
would be
of chlorine.
gross. But
Although,
that was,
hey, we've all drank our share of pool water. We've all
we
used
have.
pool water to make our Jello. Let's not kid a kidder here.
it's just easier.
It's just easier. You just go outside, you just pour the packets in, and you wait a few hours.
I actually make my pudding in the.
Of course you do.
I make my blood pudding in the pool. I just slit my wrists. I go in the deep end. And
So that's why you slit your wrist that
I
time.
don't know, you kept saying, "Why are you so depressed?" I was like, "No, I'm just
No,
hungry."
I just need my blood pudding. Do I drink my own blood? Is that what I'm supposed to do? Durr.
It's the Dracula.
There you go.
And
Well, let's talk about the last thing, which probably should have been the second thing in the montage,
Right,
which
right.
was Homer was at the playground. He'd wrapped literally everything in bubble wrap, and a kid
Yeah.
just falls.
face first into the ground, and
he
he's
just thunk onto the ground.
that was the best part because the animation was very funny of him falling face
yeah,
first.
and then he just starts rolling and popping.
Yeah, that was funny, but the overall gag, it was diminishing returns. It wasn't as radical an idea as Jello
right.
in the pool.
That probably should have been the first one.
That should have been the first. Jello should have been second. The most radical was the third.
Right, so Homer
was
is
the second.
Homer is out with the Wiggums. I like how he's baby proofing, but Ralph Wiggum counts as a baby here.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Ralph Wiggum and
Yeah,
Chief
he
Wiggum.
is, when he's not running for president.
That's true. They're playing ball in the front yard, and the ball goes into the street, and Ralph Wiggum runs for it. and a car is coming. So Homer presses a button, and spikes shoot up in front of Ralph Wiggum, pop the tires of the car, and it's like, oh yes, Ralph is safe. But then the man driving the car flies through the windshield.
And is like horribly injured.
Horribly injured, lands on the concrete, and that's the
But
happy
he's
ending.
an adult. It's baby proofing.
Yeah.
It's not people proofing.
No, fuck adults.
And that
Adults
was
are the worst.
that was a very violent, radical, and that should have been
and
the
it was
button for the
hysterical.
montage.
It was a very,
Yeah.
very funny moment.
Yeah, no, I don't know why they ordered. It was one of the biggest missteps they had made in an otherwise pretty great production.
Yeah.
No, that they should have reordered that. That would have been a great button.
Right. And then this kind of resolves this plot line later in the episode. They're watching TV.
I really didn't like this. This is one of my least favorite parts.
Yeah.
They're watching through the channel and they go, it's the Estrogen Network, which is a spoof of Lifetime. Maybe We and Oxygen had started by then.
Possibly.
And the We, W-E, the We Network,
Not us.
our network, which is
TV.
also very heavy on the estrogen. We have
Yes.
had one female guest in
That's
74
true.
episodes. But so then they go, that's fine, Estrogen Network, that's a funny name. And they go to Afternoon Yak, and it's like a
Right.
View type show, the View, the talk. And they go, men, and everybody goes, boo. And then
Yeah.
Homer just goes, canceled, and flips the channel. And I was like, what? What is
it was
that?
just
That's
like
just pointless.
Really pointless.
It's like
just,
we get the guys in the writers' room
Oh,
don't
men
like
and women
these
are
chick
different.
shows.
Oh my God, I get it.
They don't like chick shows. We get it, but I was shocked.
It was just
because-
lazy in an otherwise
Yeah,
not lazy
because
episode.
it's the reason of this is they're cutting to Kent Brockman, who's going to do some news about Homer's baby proofing,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, why don't you just have Afternoon Yak talk about it? If you want to have
That's
Afternoon
true.
Yak
That's
in
a
there
great
and
point.
satirize it, not to sound misogynist, but it makes sense to
like
have baby proofing
would
on
be a-
one of
would
those
be a
daytime
thing.
talk shows.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
That totally makes sense.
That
makes so much more sense.
I know. I was really shocked at why is Kent Brockman doing a daytime
Yeah,
nightline?
right.
Dayline.
Dayline. Oh,
It's earlier than the night.
fighter of the
line.
Brockman.
Afternoon Yak. Master of chit chat and cooking segments for everyone.
Got away from us. It's okay.
I don't think it was ever there.
I don't think it was ever there either. So enjoyed that deleted scene.
Or it's in there. We don't know.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter anymore. But yeah, so the Kent Brockman thing is baby proofing is up, and he's looking at the industries that are hurt by baby proofing, which is kind of an interesting angle to take.
It's a really basically the writers sat down and said, okay, if Homer is saving all the children, what would be some, again, slightly to 11, slightly cartoonish ways that this would affect? And
How would this have a negative
but
impact?
It's very thought out. Whereas I'm usually a newer post-classic episode, it would just be some weird random thing, like a bunch of robots who want to see babies hurt come and
Yep, that's exactly what it would be. Season 27.
So no, it was really funny, and the things that they come up with that. Again, what's slightly cartoonish that would be hurt by a big baby proofing boom are all really funny ideas.
You know what? They were funny ideas, but I think the order was off again because you had the first one was baby crutches, which is funny.
That's
a funny,
A store that
sad
sells
thing.
baby crutches,
like Tiny Tim
Yeah.
style crutches. That was the first one, and then the next one was just Dr. Hibbert being like, doctors don't have to treat babies
right,
as much.
Dr. Hibbert should have gone first.
That should have
and
been
also
first.
the baby crutch, he said also cartoon character Band-Aid sales
Right,
were
are
way down.
way down.
Again, that's another great one.
Yeah, that's
You're
cute.
right. Hibbert should have been first. That should have been second. But the third
The
one
third
was
one
the
was
perfect one.
Yes, it was a baby get well card factory
Yeah,
that was
it like
closing its
smokestacks
doors.
and smoke coming out.
Right, they closed their doors. The guy says the dream is
The
dead.
dream
and-
is over. Right, the dream is over.
A stream of like
Like-
mill workers covered in soot come out.
And basically Homer put all these factory workers out of
Right,
the job.
right.
And that was great. The idea of a factory that makes greeting cards for babies being this like industrial
Right.
mine. That's such a brilliant, again, cartoony idea.
That's a classic era type.
Not only is it a
joke.
classic era type joke, but I was telling you this when we were watching it.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite lines is from Last Exit to Springfield, where the power.
That's a good episode.
It's a great episode, and the power turns back. It's okay. It's not. It's great. So the power turns back on, and we see what Springfield is like when the power comes back on, and a fake vomit factory comes on and starts spitting out fake vomit, and everybody goes, "Yay!" And it's a
Right.
great idea. It's like, oh wow, the power's back on. These fake vomit people are happy.
Yeah.
So I always remember. I think it might even be the same worker, but maybe not. But I always remember that factory owner, that the character that they use is like a
That
foreman
being-
type middle-aged man.
Being the fake
I
vomit
remember
guy.
him being the fake vomit guy, and I always remember the power going out and him seeing the fake vomit stop and going, "The dream is over."
Yeah.
And I always try to find that clip because I think it's such a funny line. The dream is over for something that's like so not a dream job. I love,
Maybe not for you.
but I love that line, and I could never find the clip. And then I realized today that never existed.
Yeah,
I
you're
was
mixing
combining.
them
I was
up.
combining one of the greatest episodes of all time, Last Exit to Springfield, with this season 12 episode whose story I was never crazy about.
Right.
And that just goes back to what we were saying about the Speed 2 line. It's really amazing how, in this case, literally, I'm in the
you
file
combined
cabinet
two
of my
scenes.
brain.
Yeah.
I'm combining post-classic lines and classic lines, which says
Yeah.
a lot for. I mean, again, season 12 is Purgatorio. It's fairly close to the classic era.
Right.
I don't know if this exists at all for anything past, say, season 14.
Mm-hmm.
But it is great that it is, like, to the show's credit, it's great that a season 12 gag is literally in the same file cabinet that I'm getting it mixed up with a Last Exit to Springfield gag.
Yeah, that's the.
Yeah, but I was shocked that the dream is. I always thought Dream is Over was like a season
Is that
4
from
line.
Last Exit to Springfield?
Isn't it where they turn
right?
the power off? Burns turns the power off to
think
stop the
so.
strikers. I keep saying Last Exit to Springfield. I know it's one of the episodes where the power goes out, and I know in Last Exit to Springfield, Burns turns the power off.
I'm just double checking.
I could be wrong. I'm sure the power's gone off in other episodes.
It is Last Exit to
Oh,
Springfield.
phew. That would have been. I mean, I know I get something wrong every single episode, but I did say the term "Last Exit to Springfield"
Yeah.
like a dozen times.
Yeah, and then that's kind of it for the Homer episode.
Homer
He goes
feels
into the
bad
street.
for these industries. Again, that's why it's great that the last gag of that montage was all these workers filing out, because it doesn't
Right.
get more epic than that. And Homer feels bad, and he just starts running
takes
through
to the streets
I
and
think it's
just
a
says-
spoof of Soylent Green.
Probably.
end. Yeah.
But, they've spoofed Soylent
Yeah,
Green
of
so many
course.
times. But it's just him yelling, like, don't baby proof or
Might be
whatever.
Body
And it was
Snatchers.
that was the end.
Yeah,
That was the end of
yeah.
that plot. It
They-
just kind of ended.
That was a little disappointing because Homer just feels bad that he's putting adults. It's like, it sucks that these adults are losing their jobs, but maybe it's better that babies aren't getting hurt.
Probably. I
don't know.
It's a mixed message. It's just not exactly a strong
Yeah.
ending. It
Yeah.
was.
I mean, it's
it
a
is-
B plot, so it's not the end of the world, but it was a little disappointing.
Well, it's interesting because the B plot peters out and also the A plot peters out.
Yeah. So
But we'll
I
get
guess we
there.
should talk about the A plot.
Yes. So let's rewind the clock.
Well, is
Hey,
our
everybody.
clock a cassette tape? Are we using cassette tapes to tell
Yeah,
time?
I've been
We use the
using-
time code on our Walkmans.
Right. I've been using this reel-to-reel to record the podcast this whole time. That's the new equipment that we bought.
It was very cheap.
It was
to
very
get
cheap.
This
We
magnetic
spent
tape.
the rest on drugs.
We just inject heroin and spool the
That's right.
magnetic tape.
Why do you think we get really loopy sometimes?
The drugs.
It's the drugs.
We're very low-key
Booyah.
normal people when we're not high on drugs.
Yeah, when we usually talk, it's just like, hey, Jack, how you doing?
Hey, I'm okay. I
Did you
just
see
slit
that
my
Simpsons
wrist.
episode? It was
'cause I
all
was-
right. Oh, that's good. You need some pudding, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I always slit my wrist when I eat pudding.
But I'm also kind of depressed, to be honest. I could use some drugs.
Me too. Let's go get some drugs.
Has anybody bought anything on Amazon this month?
Hey, everybody, welcome to the worst episode ever. We're on drugs.
Don't do drugs. We just found out like 5 minutes ago Nancy Reagan died.
That's true.
Even though a couple weeks ago or a couple months ago we were like, is she
We
alive?
we
Is she
talked
dead?
about her,
Is she-
yeah.
Is she dead? Is she dead? Is she alive? Well, now she's dead. So she was the forefront of the Just Say No drugs campaign. So
Yes.
in honor of Nancy Reagan,
Just say
her
yes.
dying,
Because now the cop is gone.
just say, can
and
we-
we can play.
she strike up the crack pipes. Na 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 na.
We can dare to say yes to drugs. Delightful.
Our hearts go out to the Reagan family.
Of course. Don't actually do drugs.
Whatever.
All right, do whatever you want.
I thought you were a libertarian.
Yeah, I am. Do what you want. It's a free country.
Do what you feel.
Do what you feel. It's much better than do what we say. Trump 2016.
So I think we were going back in time.
Yes.
to-
So let's go back. We see back to the A plot. We see the kids are at the playground at school.
Yeah.
And I remember Lisa was talking to Milhouse.
they were all
and-
sitting on the jungle gym.
Right, they're criticizing Francine, who's the new kid.
Yeah, she's
who
sitting by
we
herself
should mention,
pretty
by
much.
the way, was voiced by Kathy Griffin.
All right, let's bring this up now.
Yeah.
Kind of a waste of Kathy Griffin.
She has maybe 3 lines, and they're all grunting and just like, I'm gonna
and
get
she's
you.
talking with a deep voice,
Right.
but none of her personality really informed this character, and
Yeah.
it could have just easily been one of the Tress MacNeille or Russi Taylor. Like
could have
she
been,
didn't
yeah.
really bring anything. And I don't watch Kathy Griffin's shows
I'm
or
not
her red carpet.
particularly a fan of Kathy Griffin.
I think she's very talented at
Right.
what she does. It's just
It's
not
just
for me.
not for us,
I
yeah.
mean, I did love her on Seinfeld, and that was her very
That was a
much
good one.
her shtick.
Yeah.
Being Kathy Griffin. I just I don't give a shit about red carpet awards, stuff like that.
No.
But yeah, I feel like nothing against Kathy Griffin. I just think the role wasn't. There was nothing there for her to do.
It's nothing against her. It's in fact, we're saying we wanted more.
Yeah,
We
exactly.
would have liked to see a bit more nuance, I guess. That
Exactly.
Only Kathy Griffin
It's like
could have brought
why
to this
Kathy
character.
Griffin? The only thing
Right.
I can think of is Kathy Griffin's redhead. Francine's a redhead,
Yeah,
and it's an
I
anime.
guess.
You don't need to have the same color. You don't have to have the same hair
don't.
to animate. Like
I thought that's why they shaved Dan Castellaneta's head.
it's like there's no reason for me to do the voices of all animated characters that have very hairy arms. It just doesn't.
I thought that's why you were going to voice the genie now that Robin Williams is no longer with us.
Did he have hairy arms?
Oh, yes. Looks like I was wearing a sweater at all times. You were talking about drugs earlier?
It was just blue mist.
Oh, the genie. Yeah. Oh, Robin Williams.
Anyway, besides a waste of Kathy Griffin, big waste of Jan Hooks in this episode.
Well, that's true,
We
too.
noticed at the end of the show that she was credited.
She's credited.
And she's in that one scene where Homer puts the mitts on
Shiva with
Shiva.
Apu.
And the only thing we hear from Manjula is a gasp.
A gasp, yeah.
So I
and
guess
it did sound like Jan Hooks' gasp.
I wonder if they reused it.
I think they might
then they
have,
have
and they
to
probably
legally
had to
credit
pay her
her?
like a SAG thing.
That's cool.
Jan Hooks also missed.
Yeah, she also did a lot of hardcore drugs and.
Was she?
No, I don't think so. Maybe, I don't know.
I don't
forget
know-
how
I
she
don't
died.
actually
I
remember
think
how she died.
I don't know. I think it was more natural. I don't know. I have no idea. Anyway, she's missed.
Yes.
And offensive joke insert here.
There you go. So they're talking about Francine on the playground, and Lisa says to Milhouse, like, "Don't you remember your first day of school?" And he says, "Not as long as I take these." And he has Repressitol, which I thought was a clever or a cute gag, but I didn't laugh.
Yeah, that's a very post-classic Simpsons joke to me. The fake medicine
wordplay.
name.
Yeah, I guess.
Wordplay specifically with like lame
Right.
medicinal name.
Yeah.
It's very unobtainium. Is that it?
Unobtainium,
Avatar,
yes,
yeah.
from Avatar.
Yeah, it's very unobtainium to me.
Well, the act actually ends with Lisa going over to talk to Francine, and Francine just punches her in the face.
And it's so
which was a startling way
it's
to
an
end the
interesting
act.
direction. You
Seeing
see
an 8-year-old
Lisa's
girl
point
get
of view
hit.
looking down at Francine, who's sitting. She's
Yeah.
like, "Hi, how are you?" And then it cuts to a reverse angle of that, so it's looking up from Francine's point of view, and you see Lisa, and then suddenly it's a close up of her face, and suddenly you just see Francine's arm come into frame and punch her in the face, and knocks her out of the frame. So now the frame is just Francine's arm and fist, like balled up fist, and then it zooms in on her fist with the dun dun dun. And that's how
Right.
Like I get
Well-
that you're zooming in on the fist because you're setting up this conflict. It seemed a little bit. I was just like, it
was a little
like is the
heavy-handed.
fist is the literally heavy.
Literally.
It was heavy fisted.
That's right.
I love this scene. Again, the direction and the production in this episode was so well done. Lots of individual scenes were directed so well. So I love where. I guess this is a little later. Let me set it up a little bit. First of all, Marge says, "Why don't you try to relate to her about with toys?" Well,
Right,
first,
with Malibu Stacy.
first Lisa's like, well, we can talk about Jazz Fusion.
Yeah, that was
Marge is like,
whatever. That was
let's put
fine.
that in the maybe file. She goes, "What about Malibu Stacy? Your dolls?" And I did like this. She goes, "They're not dolls. They're aspirational figures." I like
okay.
the term aspirational figures. I think
Yeah.
that's cute. Anyway, she goes, she goes to school and she's in front of the lockers and she says, "Francine, you like Malibu Stacy?" She realizes that it's her
Well,
dolls.
it's like, oh, you have the same Malibu Stacy that I have. You even have the whatever, like, it was like a Vassar bonus expansion pack or something. And she's like, wait a minute, that's mine, isn't it? And then she sees that her locker is destroyed.
Exactly. And then
That was cute. I like that
Francine
build.
stuffs Lisa into the locker, and we just see Lisa in the locker. We can only see like that classic Simpsons, like black, where you just see the eyeballs.
Yeah.
And then you see Milhouse is in the locker next to her.
Right.
And this is all from outside the lockers. You just see their eyes through the slats.
Yeah.
And then Milhouse is on top of Ralph, and they pan down to Ralph, and you see his eyes, and he goes, "We're a totem pole."
Hey, yeah.
And like that's a cute idea, him thinking he's a totem pole.
Yeah,
But
I
I just
giggled.
love that they chose to keep it outside of the lockers, and they're using just the eyeballs. Like you're hiding some stuff visually, and it enhances
it enhanced the scene.
The scene.
Agreed.
I thought that was great, and I also love. So then Yardley Smith, one of my favorite deliveries. I remember this too.
Mm-hmm.
When she's in the locker and she gets stuffed in because the Malibu Stacy thing didn't work, she just goes, "You like jazz? How about jazz? You like jazz?"
Like she's a B movie.
Like she's just
like
exactly. The kids love B-movie.
They love giving honey
Check
to
out our
each other.
podcast,
That's
90s
right.
Percentile.
We just talked about it.
That was a great button to, like, that jazz fusion scene earlier was okay, and that was a great button.
A good
on top of
callback
that.
to it. Yeah.
Great callback, and the delivery was perfect. And it's one of those lines that stuck with me. And
Right.
that's why, really quick, I just want to talk about other lines that stuck with me. Like I said, the dream is over, and the speed 2.
Look at your pants.
Here's some of those I just wanted to rattle off that I don't really have anything to say about. Milhouse going, she thinks she's Babe too, Pig in the City, or she thinks she's Babe, Pig in the City. That line has always stuck with me for some reason.
That's not one that stuck with me.
All right. It just, I don't know, for whatever reason, the delivery is funny. Babe,
Okay.
she thinks she's Babe, Pig in the City. And the other one is a little bit later. Willie is looking at some footage and he notices the toilet paper in one of the stalls is running out. He goes,
Oh, yeah.
"Oh my God, that toilet paper is running out!
It's on double red stripe."
I
That
love
was
that
good.
line.
I remember
and
that
that's
one,
a
too.
perfect Willie line too.
Yeah. I just want to talk real quick. So the plot here is that Lisa's being bullied and she wants to figure out why. And I think that is a really great idea for a plot. Like, we've never seen Lisa get bullied. We've seen her be a nerd.
Right.
We've seen, like, scenes of her getting picked on, but
Right.
never having, like,
A bully
the Bart
problem.
Nelson, like,
It's almost like her Bart the
antagonistic
General.
relationship. You're right. It kind of is. And she's using science instead of warfare to defeat her bully.
Oh, see, female
There you go.
scientist, which
Hey, man, I'm going to beat him with my butt.
You shouldn't have war in the treehouse with your happy.
Sounds like Bane.
You really adopted the happy birthday balloons. I'm born
with them.
the one.
And my butt. Mixing so many. We need to
I
finish.
thought that was a good Butts voice, and then you gave me that look. I was like, "Oh no, is it not as good as it sounds in my deaf ears?"
It really sounded like Bane.
At least I can do a decent Bane.
It was pretty good Bane.
Maybe Tom Hardy was channeling season 1 Homer when he played Bane.
I think you.
That
I must
explains why
break
he
your
was-
butt.
I'm going to throw you in the Lazarus pit with some frosty chocolate milks. I always thought that frosty chocolate milk sound
thought it was a
made no
weird
sense.
line.
Now I get it.
The fire rises from my butt. So this was a smart idea where Lisa decides to go to the other bullies and hire them as protection, and we see them just basically murdering Martin with tomatoes.
Yeah, just
he's
belting
hanging
him.
upside down under the bleachers.
Can I just say, we've complained so much about post-classic scenes with the bullies where
Yes.
they just seem like a
I was
little
gonna
bit
say
out
this
of
too.
character. I loved every part of this bully scene. I think
Agreed.
all of it was in character for the bullies. And they were very funny lines. So she goes, "Guys, I'd like to pay you to protect me." And
We were just thinking about getting into protection.
And then Dolph says, he's like, "We have some very affordable recess and lunch packages."
Right.
It's just make it very corporate.
I think nowadays they make the bullies weird for the sake of weird, and
Yeah.
here it was kind of humanizing them as opposed to
Exactly,
making them
exactly.
weird. It's like, okay, they're not just bullies; they're tough guys,
They're
but they're
extrapolating
smart.
it from that core
So
of
yeah,
what is a
would they
bully.
do? They could
Yeah.
go into security. Like, that's a good idea.
Exactly.
And I just thought
It's not them,
It
for
gave them
whatever
a
reason,
depth.
being into modern art or something.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
I like that line.
And it was a smart way to play this thing where they're admiring like the Indian burns.
Yeah, that was
that
the other thing I
Francine
was
had
going to
given
say.
her.
Is they're really,
Yeah.
like, they admire the, yeah, exactly.
Like they're-
the,
like-
oh,
like-
look at that technique.
It's
And
like they're craftsmen.
Exactly,
and they're
exactly.
expanding their art and appreciative of
they're
others.
not just lowercase b bullies. They're bullies. That's
Yeah,
capital
right.
B. That's their
That's their
identity.
profession.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
who they are.
Yeah, that was all.
I like
that
It
was
great
so
stuff.
well done. Yeah.
And I also like that they won't mess with girls because girls like claw and pull hair.
And
so
sometimes they fall in love.
That's true.
I like that too.
And
'cause
that also made
humanizes
sense.
them. Yeah.
Exactly. And it wasn't just like, oh, we're doing some weird stuff.
And that scene also has a great button too. So Nelson puts his arm around Lisa and is like, "Let's go for a walk." And they do some more exposition.
Yeah.
And before he goes and walks away with Lisa, he just turns around and goes, "Finish the job."
Yeah, right,
And it just
right.
ends with them very quickly. Quickly cuts away with them starting to resume
their
tomato
tomatoing
bashing
of Martin. Yeah,
they should
I
have been
like that.
throwing pudding because pudding splash is funnier than tomato splash.
Martin's the
that's-
immovable object.
Pudding splash is top-notch comedy, if you ask me.
Martin would be the immovable object because he was tied up. Where's he gonna go? Hit him with some pudding.
Real quick, I don't know where to talk about this, so I'll just talk about it now.
Okay.
I wish Francine had stayed a regular character from season 12 on.
Right.
Like a tertiary, secondary, especially because Springfield Elementary needs more female characters.
That's a good
and
point.
we've seen her before on episodes we've covered on the show, and we mentioned how they probably used her because they don't have a lot of stock female Springfield. But she's never
Right.
talked. She's never been a character.
Well,
Even if you can't get Kathy Griffin, although I'm sure you can. Like
Tress
she's
McNeil could easily do a
because she's
voice
in
for
LA.
this, yeah.
It just would have added a little bit more flavor to Springfield Elementary having that female bully.
Right, and I think it's good to have these kind of parallels to Lisa, like a bully that bullies Lisa is a good idea.
And you could have fleshed her out over time. Like Nelson
Exactly.
in Bart the General was just a bully, and he's become
Right,
a
now
character in
he's
his own
like
right.
sort of Bart's friend, but kind
they could
of
have
his
done the same with
nemesis.
Francine.
Yeah, I
I was
think
a little
it's a good
disappointed
point.
they never did.
Especially considering how this episode ends by just ending.
Yeah, so I really liked the aspect of that it was kind of a mystery, and Lisa was playing detective, and she
Yeah.
was trying to solve why is Francine trying to beat up all the why just the nerds? And
Right.
it really reminded me of Dark Knight, like all the scenes of Christian Bale firing the bullet and investigating. It was like it was half detective, half science experiment.
Yeah, I like when Lisa hacked into all the cell phones to figure out where Francine was.
Well, she sort of does because she goes to
She does go to Willie, who I liked. He's recording the school in a little bit of continuity from, Homer Batman.
Homer Batman, a little continuity there.
I liked that.
But no, yeah. So it was like half detective, half science. She does the squeegee with the sweat, and
Well, I mean, it was shot in a lot of scenes like a horror movie or a thriller, especially
That's-
when she's at the console looking at the footage, and Francine comes up behind her, and she thinks it's Willie, and she doesn't turn around, like the classic horror movie trope.
Right.
I like that. I thought it was very well done.
that's what I wanted to say. That's why I really want to say is the production of this episode was really well done. The music, there was like mystery music when she's solving the crime, and
Right.
then that scene you just said,
Yeah.
the music really played to that. The noirish, it was like
Yeah.
thriller, mystery, horror,
And it was the act break, and I love that she's like, Willie? And then it cuts away, like, while Francine is presumably beating the crap out of her, and it cuts to Willie in the bathroom, and he just gives a big
he
thumbs
fixed
up
the toilet
because he
paper.
fixed the paper. Yeah, that was so good. But yeah, Lisa decides to get a bunch of nerds together, make them sweat, and experiment on the nerd sweat. Database seemed to be a little aroused by the squeegeeing, which was
it's
odd.
probably the most human contact with a girl he's ever had.
You're probably right. And kind of off camera, she's able to figure it out and synthesize her hypothesis, which is
Right.
that there's a pheromone in nerd sweat that causes bullies to
Well,
lunge at
what
them.
proves her theory is she makes a concentrated form of nerd sweat.
Right.
And Dredrick Tatum, for whatever reason, is visiting the school, and she swabs him with the stuff.
Well, before we even get into that, I just want to mention a very dark line they had where Miss Krabappel is like, "Would you like to give me a ride home?" And Dredrick Tatum goes, "You don't want to ride home, trust me."
Yeah,
That was dark
he'll
because he's a
rape and beat her.
He's a Tyson analog.
Yeah,
and
no,
that's where that's
we
going.
don't want that in our Simpsons.
Right. And then Lisa comes in and says, "Mr. Tatum, can I swab you with something?" And he's like, "Yes." And I like to get a line, "Nobody mentioned a beaker."
Yeah.
That was funny.
Basically, Nelson responds to the nerd sweat, and
Yeah.
he just can't help but beat up Dredrick Tatum, and
Right.
it's
like
weird.
he's forcibly like punching Dredrick Tatum
and
while crying.
but he's aware of it. He's like, he knows he shouldn't be doing this, and he's crying. He's like, "I'm so sorry." And he just starts
Yeah.
punching him. He gives him a wedge. He's like, "I'm so sorry." And
Yep.
Dredger's like, "Yeah, you're gonna regret this."
We never actually see what happens.
I mean,
maybe there should have been a cutaway of Nelson like hanging from a flagpole or something.
I mean, it doesn't
something
really,
cartoony. I don't actually want to see a boxer beat up a small
like
child.
Dredger clearly wasn't in pain. He's probably very rock hard abs.
You're
and
right.
he did, but it's weird that he would still be upset about it.
Yeah,
It
right.
was such like you are nothing but flies to him.
Yeah, he was like
And
the buzzing of flies to Vigo.
So why threaten that you're still going to beat up this 10-year-old?
Yeah.
But then again, he also threatened to rape a teacher. So
That's
whatever.
true. You're right. And then we kind of get to the end, the big finale here, which takes place at the quote 12th annual Big Science thing. I kind of liked that actually. You didn't like that, okay? Well, because I like, I'm sure in the writers' room they're like, okay, they go to a big science thing, and it's like, well, what is it actually? Let's just make it the big science thing.
Yeah, I know. I get
Lazy?
it.
I
It
don't
does
know.
nothing for me. I did like this to that effect later on when in the scene they have to open up a cage and. She uses a pole with a hook to open up the cage,
Right.
and they literally call it the
The
science pole.
Put down that science pole.
Yeah, I like
Yeah,
that.
I like that too. I also liked I don't know if it was when she said that she had an anti-bully thing or whatever it was, but a guy who looked like C. Everett Koop.
Yeah,
He had the beard.
Coop-de-doop.
He gets up and he goes, "She's a witch."
Yeah.
I thought that was good.
And Frank, this was a great use of Frank too.
Yeah, it was.
He was the moderator of this, not composium,
Right.
Symposium. Was that
Yes.
this? Was that?
That was this. That was this. Guys,
yeah.
we may have taken a break to record our Superman Returns sync points and just come back recently, so enjoy this
But
and delete the
through the
scene.
power of editing, you'll never
Yeah,
know.
you'll never know.
You'll just hear the crying.
Superman Returns is a terrible movie, by the way, but buy the sync points because we make it adorable.
Adorbs. I guess let me just bring up this point real quick. the pheromones, like I said, it was a really cool. I like the story of the detective of Lisa trying to figure out why is Francine bullying nerds.
Right.
The pheromones is a little silly and a little cartoony.
Well,
and I was gonna say I was ready to really shit on it and be like, this is where it jumped the shark. This episode, throughout the whole thing, they kind of kept it grounded and make it work. It's something like silly, like Whacking Day. Like they really kind of just kept it grounded enough. Whereas I really never had a problem with it.
So you think this is ungrounded?
No, I thought it was originally. I remember it being ungrounded, and as I'm watching it, I was like, "Wow, this episode's going great." It's
agree.
a shame the pheromone thing's gonna tank it,
Well,
and it never did.
I didn't think it did.
And
I
never
thought it was
did. Yeah.
The episode doesn't have an ending, which I thought was weird. But it's weird that this episode they basically did it again with that Scorpion's Tail episode, which we've already done.
Yeah.
Which was another like pheromone aggression thing.
And I think, like I said, I think it works because it's grounded. The way they grounded it is, and again, it works well, and it's like a mystery thriller. Each scene followed the next. Like first Lisa sees Francine trip all the nerds and Mrs. Bart. Then she makes a connection to the sweat.
Yeah.
Then the next step. Then she makes the thing. It goes A to B to C.
Right, and we complain all the time about
they
episodes
don't
that don't do that.
They don't
This
even come
episode
close.
does it.
And so that by the end of this long chain of events, something ridiculous as, nerd sweat, and I made a cure for nerd sweat.
Yeah, it makes sense.
It makes sense. Whereas if this was a different episode where they didn't do that, I would probably be shitting all over right now going, nerd sweat is a stupid idea. I think this is stupid.
Because we've seen Lisa do the work. She was watching the videos. She hypothesized what it was and then tested it. And we see that as opposed to, I think nowadays it might just be like, maybe there's some kind of sweat. And then like all of a sudden she's at the science thing.
So you say Lisa did the work. The writers did the work.
Right. Well, the characters.
No, I
and
know.
But
I'm saying the writers did the work, and it shows. It makes this episode so much better.
So much better. This is a structurally sound episode, except that it just ends.
Well, but
we'll get there in a moment. We're not there yet.
So Lisa comes to this thing and she says, "I have a proposal," and all the scientists, like an 8-year-old girl, or you hear the guy that just go, "It's Dan
Let's not
Castellaneta."
listen.
Yeah, let's not listen.
I like he says it again later.
Yeah,
too.
when everybody else is agreeing, like, "Ooh, yeah," and
Let's not listen.
I just thought that we'd point that out. It's weird.
that was a funny thing. I liked it.
So she proposes the nerd sweat. They bring Francine out in a cage.
Right.
She's like feral because she's surrounded by nerds.
They basically treat her as an animal. Oh, I guess it is because she's surrounded by nerds. All the nerd sweat.
Yeah, so she's
I
like
didn't even think of
completely
that.
out of control. Yeah.
But it's funny. She's in a cage. She's like a feral animal, like you said. And then later, when she's docile because Lisa has sprayed salad dressing on herself, Lisa actually scratches her behind the ear, like she's like a cat, like a puppy.
I don't. Like
I thought that was a little weird.
I don't need
thought that was a little bit demeaning.
Yeah. So her cure is basically like you just said. It's salad dressing because
She said the
cheese,
vinegar and the Roquefort mask the scent.
Basically, you could have used anything. You could have used cologne.
Yeah,
You're covering the nerd sweat. This was one of the reasons I remember this. I remember the salad dressing being the cure from before.
Mm-hmm.
This was always one of the reasons I hated this episode. And now that I've rewatched it with a new lens, it's like not the biggest deal, but it just skews me out so much because I hate salad dressing. I hate ketchup. I hate anything vinegar.
Ketchup?
Anything vinegar
Who
based.
hates ketchup?
Anything vinegar based just skews me out. Do you know that vinegar tastes and smells just like dirty feet? Why do you want that on your salad?
It doesn't taste like
it
dirty feet.
It smells and tastes exactly like dirty feet. It's disgusting.
It smells and tastes like vinegar, and I like vinegar.
It's gross. I hate vinegar. It's disgusting. And the idea, I would
dirty
rather...
feet is more cheese smelly.
I would rather be beat up by 100 bullies than spray vinegar on me because vinegar is so fucking gross.
All right, you guys heard it here. Jack would like to be beat up by 100 bullies. Sign up at WePodcast.com.
We used to get ants in the house every summer, and my grandma would just spray the house down with vinegar because it kills the scent of the food and it drives the ants away. And it's like, no, this is... I don't want to live in a giant foot.
Right.
It's disgusting.
I don't want to, like the old lady who lived in a shoe.
I live in a giant foot.
You live in a giant foot. Yeah,
So like you said, it doesn't really end. She comes up the cure.
I love that Homer says we've proven what was happening with Francine, and all the scientists are like in agreement with Lisa. And I love Homer has a line. He just goes, "So all her bullying was just to get some attention."
Right, which is the obvious way to go with this because bullies need attention.
And Lisa's like, "No, that was not at all what we were talking about."
I like that. I didn't really like the second part where he just goes just to get attention. He's just ignoring Lisa.
I forgot about that.
I think it would have been funnier if it was just they left it alone at that. Even if Lisa didn't say no, that wasn't it at all. It should have just been this weird
just have
random.
Homer, he's oblivious.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
That's funny.
I did like that line though.
Yeah.
But it doesn't end. Basically, she finds the cure, and then there's a little silliness at the end where
she's beating up all the nerds.
She breaks out and she beats up all the nerds who don't have the dressing on them, and it's just kind of chaos. But it's kind of a happy ending because Lisa still has the cure. She's just not using it at the moment.
Right. Well, she used it on herself.
Yeah,
Lisa's
exactly.
a bitch. Share your salad dressing, Lisa.
And yeah, this was it was a non-ending because if there's an arc going on here, if the story is a mystery thriller, then it is an ending. She found the cure. Fine, but it needed more than that. It needed a little bit more of a personal.
There was
character.
no resolution to the character conflict, between her and
Francine. They should have had some kind of conversation where they came to terms, and the salad dressing was either the impetus to that or was on top of that. But that shouldn't have been the whole thing.
Right. If anything, they did the opposite of that, where they just made Francine into even more of a monster.
Yeah.
Kind of literally, because the episode actually ends with her beating up all the nerds, and then she turns to the camera, sees the viewer, and lunges at the screen.
I do like that she lunges. That's a great way to end the episode.
That's a good idea with like this horror thriller kind of thing they were working with.
And it's just basically calling out all Simpsons fans as nerds and being like, she smells you through the camera.
Which
she's coming for you.
We're not nerds.
We're huge nerds.
We're not nerds.
We're gigantic nerds.
By the way, listen to our Batman and Superman Returns sync points. Superman Returns coming next week.
We're running low on time, so I'm not going to tell this, but I was going to tell multiple stories of the different times I was bullied in camp and in school.
We'll save that for another episode.
I was bullied mercilessly in school. I'm a nerd. No, I like that they called Simpsons fan nerds, lovingly, and had her jump. But you're right; it needed a personal touch. So you're calling her a monster, not a character. So take in another episode like Bart's Comet, where the conflict is the comet's going to destroy the Earth. The comet is this non-thing. It still had a human element of Homer and Flanders, and them letting people into the bomb shelter and stuff like that.
That's where it ends up.
You need that human story on top of the intangible,
There's a character element and a plot
monster.
element.
Yeah. So if Francine's not a character, if she's the comet, then you still need some kind of character. It can't just be she came up with salad dressing. There has to be another bigger lesson learned.
Well, maybe it's just a man versus self type story where Lisa is overcoming a challenge to herself. Like, why am I being bullied? Oh, it was just because of my sweat.
Yeah, and if it's a medical thriller mystery, it works. But I really think I felt like
just like Diagnosis Murder
with Scott Baio.
That's right.
Baio. Diagnosis Murder, and I want
Scott Baio.
It sucks because I really was I was shocked at how much I liked this episode the entire time. I was waiting for the shoe to drop.
Yeah.
I was waiting for the shark to be jumped, and it did at the very last second. I was so bummed. It needed just a little bit more. It's not like last week. It's not like the Ralph Wiggum non-ending.
No, there's
there's
nothing.
an ending. There's an ending. It just could have been
it's just not. It wasn't tied together as well as I think we would have liked it to.
Yeah, there should have been a conversation. They should have made Francine more of a human character and had Lisa talk to her.
Right.
Maybe the salad dressing calms her down long enough so that they can be like, why? Maybe she really did want attention.
Yeah.
Or maybe they just find something they like or something. Maybe she likes salad. I don't know.
Maybe they bond over salad. I don't know.
Scientist, please. Looking for some order. Some order, please, with the eyes forward and the hands neatly folded and the pang of attention. Pi is exactly 3.
But I think that is it for this episode. That's Bye Bye Nerdie. So it is time to rank it on our Hippo scale. We are going to be looking at the humor, the integrity, the production values, and the originality of Bye Bye Nerdie from Season 12. So, Jack, what do we do? We're going to put 2 minutes on that clock.
Beep, boop, beep, boop, beep, boop, beep.
There we go. And so here we go. Humor, Bye Bye Nerdie, what do you got? 0 to 5. 5 being the best, 0 being the worst, 2.5, smack dab in the middle.
3.5, could go 4.
I was thinking 4 is a possibility here. This was a very funny episode.
It was. There's lots of individual moments I really liked, and they were character-based.
I'm going to say 4. Yeah, I laughed so much, especially at the first act of this episode, a lot more than I thought I would.
Yeah,
Out loud, like belly laugh.
I don't know why my gut's telling me not to go 4.
Yeah.
I feel like it could be funnier, but
I could maybe go down to 3.5.
I might be wrong.
Yeah. The integrity of this episode.
I thought everybody was very in character. I thought the integrity was solid.
Yeah, pretty strong.
Some things we talked about earlier that are escaping me now, where as I was saying them out loud, I was like, oh man, this is a great boost for the integrity score. This is great.
Yeah.
Now I can't think of them, but no, 3.5.
I was also going to go 4 on this one.
I could go 4 as well, yeah.
This is an episode I would watch again, like multiple times.
Yeah, nobody's acting out of character. 3.5 is a good score. That's like a B+.
Okay, production values.
Great. Again, the mystery direction, the direction.
Yeah, a lot of that was good. The sequence with the school bus was great.
Yeah.
The itchy and scratchy thing was excellent. I love that. There's a lot of good visual comedy in that. So I'm going to go another 4 on
I'm
this
going
one.
to go 4 for sure. 4.5 is not out of the question. I guess I won't go 4.5 because there's not a lot of beautiful, epic set pieces. You know,
Right.
it wasn't like crazy, but it was so competent, and and they did such a great job. They used direction to enhance the story, enhance the jokes. The locker with the totem pole, all great. I
Yeah.
could go 4.5, maybe. I'll go 4 for sure.
Okay. And finally, we have the originality of the episode. Pretty original.
Original plot, even though it's Bart the General too. They turn it enough on its head.
Right. Well, they've never done it with Lisa, so I like
story
that.
wise, again, every scene led to the next scene. It was great.
Right.
The subplot was not amazing, but it was not at all weak.
It was not weak. You know, it could have maybe if there had been some way where the subplot and the main plot tied together and ended both of them in a better way, I would have liked that.
Yeah, and both had the same problem. Both had a little bit trouble. They didn't stick the landing.
They didn't stick the landing. For that, I'm going to give it a 3.5.
I'm gonna go 4. I'm gonna go 4.
Okay, so we have crunched our numbers, and Bye Bye Nerdie from season 12 has ranked extremely high.
Yeah. Well, also you convinced me. I'm bumping my humor to 4.
There we go. Jack bumped his humor up. So Bye Bye Nerdie is ranking as a slightly better episode than Little Orphan Millie and a slightly worse episode than Halloween of Horrors. Friends, that puts it at number 72 on our list. That is our second least worst episode ever.
Wow. So only
didn't-
Halloween of Horrors,
Right.
a new season, a recent episode is better.
Yeah. I mean, this is a funnier episode than that. I think we both rate the humor in Halloween of Horror lower, but everything else in Halloween of Horrors we just loved. So.
Yeah, and I'd almost, like I said, there's so many individual jokes that my brain already groups in with the classic era. I would not be upset if somebody called this a classic era episode. You
Right.
can't call season 12 a classic season because there's so many clunkers.
Well,
but
season 12 is not so bad, and I'm kind of remembering that as we're doing more season 12 episodes. There's some good episodes in there.
all right.
Good
But it's not a digressive or progressive thing. You think it's actually better than season 11 and 10.
Well, season 11 is where the seams started to show. I think season 12 might have been a little bit of a comeback, and then 13 on is kind of just a downhill slope. But that's just me. That's what I think. So that is it for this episode of Worst Episode Ever. If you have an episode you would like to suggest, just like Ricky Gregory suggested this one, you can do that on our website, weepodcast.com. That's weepodcast.com. And while you're there, you can get to our Reddit, our Facebook page, and our Amazon links, all that fun
Join that
stuff.
Reddit. We've had a few people, myself included, who said, I've never used Reddit before, but I
Right.
joined for this. And it's fun. It's a nice little comment section.
You know, if you don't want to actually comment and you just want to read the comments, you don't have to get a Reddit account. You can just go and just check it
all
out.
right.
But we comment on it fairly often. If you
Yeah.
want to talk to us, that's probably the best way to do
Look,
it.
we're doing this live pretty much, and we're talking to broadcast, and sometimes we don't really have time to actually digest the episode and think. So that's the best place for us to do our we tractions
Right.
and for you guys to convince us that we were wrong on some things.
Yes, so check that out. And while you're at weepodcast.com, you can check a number of great things, namely 90s Percentile, brand new episodes coming every Monday. That's our other podcast talking about the
Check
90s.
it out if you haven't. We're having a lot of fun.
We
It's
are.
gaining a lot of momentum in the podcast.
You can tell
universe.
people you were there before it was big. I was there.
I was there in the 90s before it was big.
Yes, and we just had a great new episode about that of that come out on Monday. And on Tuesday, we had our Batman Sync Points episode come out. So $2 for that. I think it's worth every penny, Jack. I don't know if you do.
Yeah.
But Batman 1989, it's streaming on Netflix, so you can easily watch it in your very own home.
I would buy it if I needed to. I'm a big Batman fan, but I kind of want a Superman commentary too. Is there any way I can get that?
There certainly is, Jack, because next Tuesday, our Superman Returns commentary is going to be coming out. Now, Superman Returns is a bad movie, which I know because we just did the commentary very recently.
And don't be surprised if for like the first half hour you hear us going, yeah, this isn't bad, and then suddenly
and then it slowly turns into me screaming about how much I hate it. But Superman Returns is streaming on HBO Go and HBO Now. It's also available
And if
for
you
purchase.
do think it's bad and you're not interested in watching it, hopefully we're entertaining enough.
Just give us your $2.
Give us
We
a
just
shot.
want the
Give
money.
us a shot.
So that's going to be coming next Tuesday the 15th, I believe it is.
And then 10 days after that, go see
And then
Batman
go
v
see
Superman.
Batman v Superman.
Don't
We were
tell
not
me-
paid any money
Yeah.
by Warner Brothers to tell you to go see it. We're going to go see it.
If you do see it the day it comes out, don't tell me anything. I'm probably going to wait a couple weeks.
Yeah. So that is it. Next week, we're going to be back. We're going to be watching an episode from season 20 that is called In the Name of the Grandfather. They go to Ireland in that episode. So
All
that's
right. Must
why
be
we're
some
doing
kind
it.
of Irish holiday coming up.
Maybe it's my wife's birthday when the next episode comes out.
And she is not Irish at all.
She has zero Irish. She is 100% Cuban.
Thematically accurate.
Yes. So that is it for this episode of Worst Episode Ever. Jack, how do we always end the show?
Oh, I really should put together some of those cut all this videos people submitted.
You haven't, so how are we going to end it today?
With me apologizing to those people.
There you go.
It's delicious. Want to try? Yay! Ooh, so cold. Wow! Pink daggers, green hatchets, yellow ice picks.
And stabios are part of this New Jersey.